Well, hello everyone. This is John again. Excuse the coughing. I'm still getting over this little cold or something. So today I wanted to talk a little bit about something that is consistently talked about on YouTube. It seems like everyone who does motorcycle videos has to talk about it, and that's the cruiser versus sport bike debate. So that's been going around for a while. But the majority of the videos are slanted towards the sport bikes because the majority of the videos are on a sport bike. So now I'll start by saying that personally I am not a big fan of the debate. And the reason I'm not a big fan of the debate is, you know, if you're on two wheels, you're all right, okay? We're all out here riding, we're all out here enjoying ourselves. We ride different bikes for different reasons, and I don't think that's a reason to create divisions or argue. But, you know, for the sake of it, I'll go ahead and discuss my thoughts on the cruiser versus sport bike thing. So, we'll go ahead and talk. I'm out here in rural Missouri. We're riding around. It's about 46 degrees. It's a chilly day. Kind of taking it slow, just kind of enjoying the scenery and enjoying actually getting to see a little bit of grass because we have had days warm enough to start waking up the lawns, and there's even some flowers poking out, and saw some dandelions in my front yard today. So it was pretty cool. So we are starting to get into spring, and it is starting to warm up. So I think what I'll start with the discussion is I want to debunk a couple of my least favorite anti-cruiser arguments. I figure if I'm going to be the guy on a cruiser talking about this, I ought to go ahead and at least have a little bit of cruiser bias in there, right? So my least favorite cruiser versus sport bike arguments on the side of the sport bike. The first is safety, okay? Safety is a concern for some motorcyclists, not all. And sport bike riders in these videos a lot of times make the distinction or make the determination that if you ride a cruiser, you're less safe. They claim that cruisers don't have the types of brakes that sport bikes do, and so they're less safe. They claim that because they're heavier, they can't stop or maneuver as quickly. And they claim that cruiser riders do not wear appropriate safety gear. So we'll go ahead and start with those three claims, starting with the first one. Cruisers do not possess the technology to prevent an accident. They don't have the right brakes. Now, that may have been true years and years ago, but that one I think is pretty easy to debunk. You have just about as many cruisers with analog brakes as you do sport bikes. Cruisers have disc brakes all around. I had disc front and rear here. We have all the same technology available on our bikes. The only thing that we don't have is the neat traction control computers and stuff like that, but those really aren't necessary for the type of riding most cruiser riders do. So it's true that you can maneuver a sport bike quicker, but I think that's rarely necessary in an emergency situation so much as braking is. And cruisers have one tremendous advantage, and that is when braking with the front brake, you don't have the... Do I have anyone behind me? You don't have the problem of that. Then that's just the front brake there. Well, I might have had a habit, use a little bit of rear brake. But you don't have the problem of the front end diving really hard, and you don't have the problem of potentially going over the handlebars because the back end came up off the air. There's a lot of weight in the back. Let me try another hard stop here. Just up from 40. So a little wobble there, but, you know, stops quick. No analog brakes on this model, so I got to kind of be careful, but I think I induced that wobble. I think I shifted my weight and caused it to wobble. But, you know, we can stop on these modern bikes. So the second aspect of that, though, is the gear, right? Okay, you're saying that cruiser riders tend not to dress for the ride, or dress for the fall, rather. They just dress for the ride. Now, that's not true of me. You can see that here. I've got riding pants with armor, an armor jacket, full finger gloves. I always wear boots, and I always wear gear. Straight up to the triple digits. It doesn't bother me to wear gear. But so far, I'm the only cruiser rider I've met out here that wears gear. So that's something to be said, but I don't like the logic of that argument. And the reason I don't like the logic of that argument, there's a beautiful view out here on the left. The reason I don't like the logic of that argument is because there's nothing that prevents a cruiser rider from wearing gear. There's nothing at all. There's no law. There's no unwritten rule that says if you ride a cruiser, you have to wear no helmet or a vanity helmet and ride dangerously. Now, more cruiser riders tend to do that, but that has nothing to do with the bike. It's not the bike's fault that the person riding it wears unsafe gear or no gear at all. And likewise, one might even make the argument that sport bike riders tend to ride more dangerously than cruiser riders. Cruiser riders tend not to, lane split. I don't think I can on this thing. It's pretty wide, pretty big, especially with the tour pack and everything in behind. Cruiser riders, you're not going to see any video of a Kawasaki Vulcan doing 210 miles an hour on the highway. Cruiser riders tend not to do those things. But again, that's still a bad argument because that's up to the rider, not the bike. So even though a sport bike could be capable of doing in excess of 200 miles an hour, does not mean that a conscientious, safety-concerned rider is going to be doing that on a public road. And there are advantages to the big bikes, like the 1400cc bikes, like the Suzuki Hayabusa or the Kawasaki ZX-14. They're geared in such a way that they rev low on the highway, which is uncharacteristic for most sport bikes. And they're designed in such a way that they're a little bit more comfortable, like a sport touring bike. So a lot of people ride those bikes for comfort, not for the performance. And so it's really, really difficult for either side to make the safety argument, I think. It's certainly concerning, the river there's up just a little bit, certainly concerning the wearing of gear or the type of riding. So I think safety goes out the window. I don't think that's a valid argument. So now the next argument really has to do with the noise, right? This one's a little bit loud. Again, that's the bike, the rider, not anything else. So mine's debaffled. It's a little bit louder, but it's not nearly as loud as some sport bikes I've heard. So the final argument is comfort. I've heard it said that there's no way cruisers can be comfortable because you're in that laid-back position and, it's way more comfortable to be on a sport bike where you get the weight off your back and everything else. Maybe, but not for me. And that kind of brings me to my first point, why I ride a cruiser. So I guess if I'm going to have the discussion of why someone should ride a cruiser or a sport bike, it's fair for me to have the discussion of why I ride a cruiser. And the reason for it is, for me, comfort. I have really long legs. Here I am on a cruiser with 4 vinyl floorboards, and my knees are above the fuel tank, okay? So I have long legs. They don't fit on a sport bike. I'm also not very flexible, so I have this problem when I get on a sport bike that my ankles just can't roll high enough. All right, they can't roll high enough, so when I get my feet back in that position, I have a hard time shifting and I have a hard time hitting the rear brake. So for me, a sport bike's not a good fit. I looked at sport bikes as my first bike. It seemed like a logical decision because they tend to be cheaper, and at least used ones do, older ones do. They tend to get better gas mileage, and they're lighter so that they're a little bit easier to ride. But it just didn't fit. It wasn't a fit for me, and so this is a comfortable fit. That and the type of riding I do. Now, if you're the type of rider who loves to just push the envelopes, who'll be doing 85 miles an hour on this same road that I'm doing 30 miles an hour on, who just loves to throw it down on the corners and speed out of the straight stretches, cruiser's probably not for you because it's not going to do that for you. There are some really powerful cruisers out there, but they still are not going to do for you what even a small sport bike can do. An Ninja 250 can out-handle my 900cc Vulcan. May not be able to out-accelerate it, or may come close, though, actually. But the point is, if your kind of riding is the performance-oriented riding, then chances are you're not going to enjoy a cruiser. But if the type of riding you do is the laid-back, kind of relaxed riding, if you like kind of riding long distances, things like that, then a cruiser or a touring bike built on a cruiser frame really can be something to consider. And that's the second reason why I ride a touring bike or a cruiser bike, is because I enjoy riding long distances. My wife and I, for our honeymoon, we did about 2,000 miles to Missouri and Arkansas. It was a lot of fun, and that's the kind of riding that I really enjoy. Looks like we may have come to the end of this road or something. Just a little FYI, I actually have no idea where I am, so I like to do this sometimes. I like to just come out and turn out on roads I've never been on before. This is pretty loose, so you're going to see me do something you shouldn't do, and that's put your feet down and walk the bike in a turn. But yeah, you can see how loose it is. Dorky riding 101, use your feet for a U-turn. But I was a little worried about leaning over and stuff and all that loose stuff. This is one of my favorite pastimes if I have an afternoon free or something, is just to come out and enjoy the scenery and head out on roads I've not been on before. Usually I can find my way back. If not, I've got a GPS. Sometimes I'll end up, really far away. I might ride for a couple hundred miles like this and not know where I am. But it's fun, right? And usually you can always find the interstate and get back. So anyway, that's why I ride a cruiser. I ride a cruiser because I enjoy leaning back. I've got a backrest on mine. I've got highway pegs. I can literally lean back, slouch back with my feet on the highway pegs, and I can ride this thing like a lazy boy recliner. You know, and now in a little bit curvier roads, it's not so bright, but you know, when you're on the interstate, it's comfortable to lean back and kind of enjoy yourself, and it's nice to be able to move into several different positions when you're on a ride, when you've been, especially on a bike like this, which has almost a 300-mile range on a gas tank. You can go tank to tank because you can move so much and you have so much room to stretch out. So that's what I think. I'm really not a fan of the sport bike versus cruiser debate, though, because it's all about what fits you and what does the kind of riding that you like to do. I never really understood why there has to be so much animosity between the two. Like, for some reason, if you ride a sport bike, you can't like anyone who rides a cruiser and vice versa. Another thing, I'm just gonna end with this kind of pet peeve, and that is the wave. Okay, that biker wave, it's unique. Some people do it with a couple fingers. Some people throw their whole hand out there. Some people do the hi mom thing. You know, they do all kinds of weird stuff. The biker wave is supposed to be, hey, I don't know who you are. I don't care who you are. You're different than me, but you're on a bike, and that creates a brotherhood, sisterhood. And so I'm going to wave and say hi to you because you're on a bike. For some reason, some people have decided that it means, hey, you ride a bike like mine and you're just like me, so we're going to wave. The whole point of the biker wave is that you're not like me, but you're on a bike, and that makes you like me. So you may not be riding the same brand, you may not be riding the same style or type, but you're riding a bike, and that's all that should matter. So if you take anything from this video, do me a favor. Anyone remember which way I went on this road? I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Do me a favor and wave when you see another bike. You see another sport bike, wave. You see another cruiser, wave. See a Harley, wave. Bring back what that wave is supposed to mean. Bring back the brotherhood of people who enjoy riding motorcycles, regardless of what type they are. And yes, before anyone comments, this bike is capable of taking these corners faster, and so am I, but I'm in kind of a lazy, just enjoy the scenery mood, so I'm not taking these very fast. Sometimes I get in a mood where I'm real aggressive, and I'll really lay down into the corners. Sometimes I'm like this, and I just kind of want to lazily put around them. So that's all I really have, but I would love to hear your comments and your discussion, and maybe I'll make a part 2 based on what you have to say on cruisers versus sport bikes. So let me know in the comments below what you think about cruisers versus sport bikes and what you think should be included in the discussion. Okay, guys, God bless. We'll talk to you later.